Hello, Opening Pathways viewers. It's Tom Lenoble. It's great to be with you again. Today I have Dhruv Adhia with us. He's the co-founder and CEO and CTO of Prana Labs. Dhruv, welcome to Opening Pathways.
Thank you so much, Tom, for having me. It's a pleasure. I look forward to this podcast.
Good. It's great to have you here. I want to start right at the beginning and jump in here of tell us about Prana Labs and what sparked your idea to start it.
Absolutely. As an entrepreneur, we all go through this kind of a burnout, right? Like we are trying to achieve so much. And with my previous companies that I co-founded and exited, I've had a wonderful, enthralling time. But in the process, somewhere I lost my health. And with that, I lost myself. And and during COVID times, this was after the exit, fast forward a little bit in 2019 and 20, it really hit me hard. And I must say that I was also detected in the pre-diabetic and early type 2 diabetic range. And that was a wake-up call that through we need to do something. And that was the time around which I really took a major U-turn in terms of my lifestyle and in my outlook towards life itself in general. I refused to give into the medical system in the sense, surviving on pills and things like that. I decided I'm going to take in charge of my own health and be my own doctor. And it was very motivating. It was extremely self-inspiring to take that path. I've seen people healing themselves, and I told myself, why not me? And in the process, obviously, I learned a lot about myself. I actually faced myself in the mirror. It's like facing your own conscious, your own vulnerabilities and your own strengths and weaknesses. I went through that journey. Um, and here we are in 2025. I had this discussion with my wife, around the December of 2024, that, actually we can do something about this. We have tools and technologies where we can build something called the idea of peaceful computing, or I would say conscious AI. And the idea is not to bring like a consciousness into AI, but how can AI become more aware about the needs of a human being? Everybody back then, even in 2023, 2024, talked about something called second brain because of ChatGPT and everything. How can and nowadays you might have heard about agents and everything. So we asked this question, what about second heart? You know, Human beings are not just human doings. We are not computational beings. We are not beings who are constantly ingesting information and looking for even knowledge or information all the time. We are being, and we have poetry to us. We have art. We have feelings. We have emotions. Um, so I see none of that being addressed even right now by this whole domain of AI. And that's where the idea of peaceful computing comes into picture. I actually wrote a blog about this a few days back. And the idea is how can technologies actually take a back seat, go in the background rather than craving for attention and, you know, and take care of my well-being in the process as well. So that's where the inspiration came, like to build this kind of a screen-free experience based on haptics at this point. So I would say this is a little bit of like, a thought process behind how we came about with the beginning of Prana Labs and launching this product called Vayu and the whole idea behind it.
And how are you fundamentally different since you started this? What's changed for you?
Sorry, could I ask a question like in what terms?
Yeah, well, what's happened to you since you've been on this mission and you've started this company? What's changed?
Since we have started, obviously, it's really just me and my wife at this point, and I must say that we have agents helping us because I come from the field of AI as well, and we utilized the best and state-of-the-art tools and technologies to help us develop this. And that's how we have gone from ideation to launching products on iOS infrastructure, Android infrastructure. On Android, we have nearly 68 Wear OS Android watches which are compatible with this application, whose price can be as low as $30, as well as iOS, watch OS infrastructure. And we are in partnership with universities and research projects to do the pilot studies and how it's affecting people in their daily lives, how it's helping them improve their heart rate variability, those kind of studies. So we have been forming meaningful partnerships. We've been getting into interesting programs around AI and biofeedback and biosignals, related research. So I would say a lot of meaningful partnerships. We've already come a long way. By the way, the company was founded on 1st of April 2025, so it's not even been a year. But we're very proud of all the achievements that we've made so far and the impacts that it has already started bringing in people's life. So far, in terms of numbers, we have over 25,000 downloads. We have started generating some revenues as well. We have started forming some partnerships with B2B employee wellness programs. And so, yeah.
Great. Drew, thank you for all that information about your company. On this podcast, we delve into who you are. So that's where we're going to move to next. So I know that for many people I talk to, if not everyone, there was some influence they had early in life. Someone influenced them that molded or planted a seed of who they are today. Who was that for you?
I would say, a lot of people have played a very fundamental and important role in shaping who I really am. Definitely my parents, I would say, to a larger extent. My father challenged all the status quo, and that's why I challenge the status quo that this can be resolved. The health issues can be resolved through taking a very sincere U-turn to your lifestyle. And if you do that on a consistent basis, I'm sure to see good results. And that kind of conviction to tell that to a doctor to stop writing prescription and to give me some time is something that I have got from my father as well as mother, I would say, to a great extent. And There've been obviously sheer inspiration, and I would say lately, obviously, my wife, even my daughter, to enjoy the ride, to enjoy things that you do and love in the process of doing it, and having that childlike nature about going about things. So I really, when certain things became a challenge. I was like, why not actually address that? Like, why not put your heart into this? And why not actually live that life? Um, One of the most interesting things now to answer that, even that question, how has it changed for me? I don't have to take out a separate time for health because health is now part of the company. It's an agenda for the company. Like every single day, I use the app, I'm practicing with the app or the smartwatches and everything. And in the process of testing and trying different ways out, I am performing those actions as well, which has direct impact on my health, right? So it becomes very meaningful. And even those discussions that I would have, like philosophical discussions about life and everything in general, now we actually think about that through the company, through the product.
Mm-hmm.
That way, we have merged who I am as a person when who this company is. It's nothing separate. Essentially the point to bring my heart and soul into this company.
What personal values did you have when you came and started Prana, and which ones have deepened more over this past year?
Great question. This also kind of connects with the people who have shaped my life. One of the person, although not alive, and one of the moms perhaps 5,000 years old, called Maharshi Patanjali. His teachings from Yoga Sutras is where I have taken a huge inspiration in terms of bringing authentic practices, but also even Western practices, which have proven to be beneficial for human beings, and combine them together onto this platform. Um, he is obviously a deep, deep insight into the field of yoga. For example, his definition of yoga is the most apt definition of yoga that I've come across, which is the second verse of Yoga Sutras in Sanskrit. It is Yogos Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is the removal of the activities of mind. And really, the postures or even breathing, are the tools on the way to get you there. Ultimately, we are trying to achieve the stillness of the mind. And that is really, even if you look at the application, there's a journaling system which goes from the most disturbed state to the stillness. And we, apart from the health and everything, what we want to contribute is help people achieve the stillness in their lives and think through clearly as well. So I would say that this values, where it is not just about exterior motives, but as human beings, there is something fundamentally much more deeper, than any of the computation that AI could represent in today's day and age. We as human beings are just so beautifully crafted, and those are the values that, I'm approaching this company with. Um, and I think, these things will become way more relevant now when AI takes over more and more of a computational work. What do human beings do? What is our role in the society? What is the relationship between us and AI? And, all of that. And I feel like I see this as an opportunity to empower human beings to help us realize that there's so much beauty, so much creativity now that we would have time for, that we can bring out.
Tell us about a risky decision you took and what gave you the courage to act on it.
That was a decision, so 2019, May 4th, in front of the doctor, and he was a little bit shocked about looking at my blood work. And the risky decision, he started writing, okay, Dhruv, we need to get you on medication. And I was like, can you give me 3 months? Please hold on to writing the prescription. Give me 3 months. And he's like, what will you do? And without sort of hearing me out properly, he's like, okay, you can try diet and stuff like that. We'll see if you need help. Let me know, even before 3 months. So I'm like, all right, I did tell him that I'll try something way more than diet. Just diet, and something that I find very central to, everything that I did afterwards. But that was essentially on the spot, where I took a decision that no, although very risky, although something that is against the norm, I will go in that direction and be in charge again, being in charge of the health in this case. But I remember myself, even right now, when I think about that moment and walking away from something like that. So, or rather, very comforting, right? Like, and I refused to let my mind settle into these old ways of um, going about my life. And it was a direct challenge to my own mind that no, things are not going to be the same anymore. Yeah, I'll not give you the support that you will ask for as well. So that was a risky decision on my end at that particular moment.
Yeah, I've learned that some of my biggest mistakes have turned into my biggest successes, which didn't seem that way while the mistake was happening. What mistake have you had that taught you more than any of your successes?
I think That's a very interesting question. Think in terms of the mistakes. One of the biggest, it obviously would seem to be, right? Like when you are starting out as an entrepreneur, you are fundamentally taking a risk of not going with jobs or not going with something that is rather way more stable, right? At first point, it seems to be like that. I started the first company in 2012, and I must say it constantly felt like that for a few years, through what have you done? Like, why don't you just keep things easy? Why don't you go with the flow? And, those kind of thoughts, right? I continued, I persevered, because I realized, although seemingly very uncomforting, although it feels like, what have you done? It was teaching me a lot, wearing these multiple hats, managing multiple things, pushing me to limits, helping me realize my own potential by the day, helping me learn the ideas of business and everything more rooted in pragmatism. So I think that was over the years one of the best decisions I can say I've made that really felt like a mistake in the beginning. Like, okay, I don't have to go through this trouble. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. It is better to just find something that we know that works. And with that company, by the way, my idea was to create holograms. And, again, something that didn't exist during those times. So, um, but I must say I'm supremely happy taking that decision. And as you can see right now, I would do that again.
Yes. Tell me this. I'm curious how you recognize fear as information and not a stop sign.
Could you give me a bit of an example?
Sure. There's certain fears we have in our life. If a bear's chasing us, we're going to probably do something different than fear of everyday living or fear of taking on something new or fear even about our health. But
Mm.
how do you recognize when fear is presenting you with more information versus saying, stop, don't go here?
When, right. Now, I think I guess the question is more about how do I face my own fears when it's presenting me with options, whether it's with more information or asking me to stop, which way, or how do I address that kind of situation, right?
That sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Um, I would say that, you know, I must say one thing. I'll quote here something, okay? A quote that comes to my mind. Again by a monk. Again in Sanskrit, it says Gyanan Mukti, which means knowledge leads to bliss and freedom. And something very simple, short, few words. And I've always felt empowered. I've felt it disappears, like, with information, with imbibing that information, turning that into a knowledge to know something, to live it, a lived experience. Even if there is no lived experience, having enough information and knowledge always has acted as a starting point for me to face my fears. When I was again sitting there in front of a doctor asking, which way to go, right? Like in those split seconds, I had some information. In fact, I had a plan to what to do next day morning and how I would take my U-turns, what kind of research I would do to further enhance my understanding about the situation. And I must say that I was smiling after 2 weeks into this because obviously I could measure myself from multiple different ways. And that I've always felt from that point in 2019, the best way is actually have enough information to face it and see. It's almost like that's my ultimate weapon, knowledge. And that helps me obviously overcome any kind of unknown situation. I think the fear arises from that, right? And unpredictability, right? Not knowing, putting yourself in this kind of like a dark forest and not knowing which way to go. There is just darkness, and obviously it's wild. You know, you could be you could be disappearing any moment. And the more light that I would shine, even on the things immediate to me, and in this case, the metaphor again I'm taking is more towards that immediate information, like a low-hanging fruit. That would be a start. And I told myself, even during those times, through brick by brick, we'll build ourselves again. And one day at a time, one step at a time, we will build whatever we need to build. So I think, um, and another thing that I've learned from the domain of spirituality is the difference between reacting and responding. And I think when something is challenging, or when emotions take over or hormones take over, there's all obviously the mind, the monkey brain, whatever we call, goes towards reacting to a situation, whether it's through anger or through ignorance or shutting off the doors, or all of that. But I've always learned taking a step back, taking your time to respond is obviously a much better solution towards those kind of situation, fearful situation, unknown situation. These are some of the things that I do now very consciously, even if I might not be able to do it 100% of the times, but it does remind me, I remind myself of, this kind of awareness, and step back, respond, not react, and gather information, because it also gives me time to gather information. So those would be some of my starting points.
The good old monkey mind, swinging from doubt to worry to fear and swinging around in areas of service very little. So tell me this, what impact are you most proud of? But I'm interested in personally, not publicly or professionally. What impact personally are you most proud of?
It goes back to the same story. In 2019, the next 3 months, what happened in next 3 months, right? So my A1C, HbA1C is a measure of your sugar over the period of 3 months, and that had crossed the boundaries. And now I was, working on myself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in every possible way that I could now, to bring myself together, right? Like bring this fragmented Dhruv together into one cohesive entity that, is robust and solid in terms of moving forward, right? Um, and different people call this, in a different way, like alignment of chakras, or, mind body kind of synchronization, a lot of different ways to put it. Um, and I realized, simple discipline, practice every day, do certain things on right timing. And I could see the progress, right? Like as I mentioned, I could measure myself in different ways, and I could see how, I was actually crushing this weakness that was right in front of me. And I realized that what I'm reversing is, sugar or any kind of blood work related anomalies are just a surface level like symptoms. Under it there's something much more fundamental underneath, which is, I believe, connected to your mind in many ways, connected to your emotions, right? Something intangible. And that is what I started addressing in few weeks down the line. It is the mindset, essentially, right?
Mhm.
So I I could see that, see that progression in terms of how I was thinking, how I was behaving, how I was taking moments at a time, and repeating good habits, to put it simply, again and again and again. and to see myself defeating my own mind that are the old habits that I had, and overcoming that again and again. And I think, something as simple as that was really, really proud, because I think you get so much into the work and into the world and everything else that some of the simpler you go away from some of the simplicity that we know we all have access to. And to me, so, to see myself coming back to that simplicity is something that I feel very proud of. Like, to just sit and breathe and relax and meditate and do that repetitively, and obviously do it in a very methodical way to overcome physiological issues, even psychological, and all those kinds of issues. So I must say that those 3 to 4 months were very transforming. Even to put some numbers, I lost 18 kilos in 45 days. And obviously that came with a very strong mindset. And to follow through that every day is something that really makes me proud of myself.
Yeah, very wonderful. Tell me, what boundaries do you have or have you put in place that are become essential to your sustainability?
What boundaries, right? Um, I, you know, I, I must say that there are certain, things that are much larger now. The way I look at the boundaries, I always introspect. When I introspect, I find beauty not in manifested life or not in numbers. This might sound a bit more paradoxical as an entrepreneur, but you know, finding your solace in your family, finding your solace in beautiful people around you, find and listening to your own emotions as well. For example, your body is trying to say something, listen. Your mind is trying to say something, listen. Your family saying something, listen. Your people around you, observe, listen. Um, and when I listen, it forms my boundaries. I recalibrate boundaries, right? Um, Depending on how things that really, really matter to me. And I think beyond that, everything is just a play, a dance, that I am okay to be an audience and observe that this is happening, but not really, participate in those activities, I would say. As I would say, I've heard this somewhere, one lifetime is not enough to make all the mistakes. It's good to learn from others and just not.
My father had that quote on his wall.
Yeah,
Learn from the mistakes of others. You don't live long enough to make them all yourself. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So I don't have to experience everything. I don't have to go through all of that. I think sometimes it's good to note that these three mistakes had been made. This was the outcome. Let's not repeat that.
Yes, yes.
Uh, yeah.
What does renewal look like for you beyond just taking time off and resting? How do you renew yourself? What does renewal look like for you?
I wonder if there is any such thing as a renewal. One of the most profound books that I've read is The Alchemist, in which Shepherd goes back home, goes around, somewhere. I vaguely remember that story, but what I remember, he goes around and he comes back home. And I feel like, one of the most profound quotes that my father also told me is that through you are in the universe and the whole universe is within you. And that realization that you have profound depth. Um, and I must have to work a lot on that point itself. Um, would be very rejuvenating, right? To be not confined by the limitations of your mind or systems in place, but to realize that it is the very same energy within you which is manifesting out there and building things out there, all the technologies or cures, solutions, right? and problems as well. We are the ones behind it. So I think that realization almost feels like a rebirth, and I must say it's a constant work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your boldest vision that's coming up for you when you look at what's out in front of you? What's the boldest vision for what's going to happen?
I think I mentioned this, not to speak too much about company and everything, but really, truly, truly passionate about, because as a technologist, as an engineer and as an entrepreneur coming from the space and trying to make a meaning of everything that's happening in front of us. I think we'll all agree that we are at the forefront, at a crossroads, with AI, with geopolitics, with energy, with all kinds of situation, and humanity is like right there at the crossroads, thinking which direction to go. And obviously, there's a lot of chaos as well, happening right there. And I stand here, obviously, at the crossroads, asking myself, what is the most beautiful path forward? What is the most harmonious path forward with AI, with technology, with everything? And how can we unleash this kind of creativity, this kind of potential out of every human being. So I would say that the boldest idea here, again, that I would plan to address is, again, um, how can we bring out that creativity? How can we bring out more of the humanness? So to a point that they see harmony with everything out there, and they do not see threats like an AI taking their job, or something happening somewhere else, some politicians doing something, and thing markets going up and down. How can they really build it for themselves, right? How can we have these tools now that actually focus on human beings, rather than exploiting their attention?
Hmm. What does legacy mean to you at this point in your life?
um, I think I would answer this question again a little bit differently. I think we sometimes we try to quantify it, right? In terms of how much I leave behind, how much, or how many charities, or how much of that donation, it's always some kind of numbers come into the picture. Um, I think, I would answer this like, how Buddha would do is, have you laughed enough? Have you smiled enough?
Yeah.
Of doing whatever you've learned. So, the way I would answer this is, have I enjoyed enough? Have I had, was it completely fulfilling? Even if it could mean really changing one person's life, right? And in my heart, when I leave, I think that would be something so beautiful to know that there was this selfless, like, karma or action that was done for somebody else, and that I think would be profound, in comparison to any kinds of large numbers. Obviously, I truly appreciate, other folks, trying to do things for the betterment of the world. Um, but I also feel like, so, just touching somebody's heart, soul, doing it that way is also deeply profound to me, that would at least leave a legacy in my own heart.
Yes, I call that the philanthropic mindset.
Mhm.
I had people coming to me telling me when I have money, I want to be a philanthropist. And I started thinking that if we could help people see their smile or a simple hello is
Mhm.
actually a philanthropic gesture that we can share with others, just a word of comfort. For me, the difference is when you have expectations of something in return. If you're expecting something in return, then you've shifted whether you're really having a philanthropic mindset or gesture.
Mhm.
Um, Dhruv, tell me this. If your younger, much younger self were to watch this podcast we're doing, what would you tell him?
what would I tell to my younger self, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, through this podcast, I would say that, um, you know, I see, I see that you're trying to meet expectations. I see that you're trying to um, be, everywhere, trying to be up there. But that is the system that you're experiencing. The world measures you on a completely different level or in a completely different way. While not to disrespect, educational infrastructure or the framework, um, know that that is not the end or even the beginning. The entire play is very different. It's much more dynamic, right? If you work on the dynamism of who you really are, right? In the possibilities and out of the box thinking, in the way you could be connecting with more people out there, um, than just your own curriculum or things like that would really help you in terms of uh, like start experiencing that life early on. Like that is a subject. Life is a subject, which is not taught.
Yes, isn't life interesting when we look back of what we've learned? I think we wouldn't be who we are today without all the experiences we've already had. In fact, if without any of them, you'd be someone different today. Yet, I love this question where we look back and think of what we would tell our younger self. Because if we had known that, we might not be who we are today. I guess that depends on whether you like who you are. Tell me this, if you could leave our listeners with one invitation,
Sorry, one invitation.
one invitation, what would it be?
And that could be anything, like any.
Sure.
um, you know, I would say that one invitation is, there's this being, within you, which feels very intangible, right? Because all we experience are the senses, this world, all the tangible aspects. But there's this being that is you, which obviously, in a rightful mind, we would call it very intangible experience. Again, paradoxically speaking, is much larger. We can spend some time listening to that. Um, and perhaps, you know, I invite you to invite yourself, essentially, maybe 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, which could spark creativity, enthusiasm, life. So I invite you to invite yourself.
Love this. I love this. Dhruv, I really enjoyed this conversation as the survivor of two life-threatening illnesses, one that was terminal, and
Mhm.
living with metastatic cancer the last 14 years. People ask me
Mhm.
when I say I'm still here, why do I think I'm still here?
Mhm.
And while I had the best medical care and the best access to treatment, and my skin color gives me privilege, there was one thing that was beneath it all. I believed I could.
Mhm.
So tell us where we can find you. Tell us about your company again and how we can find you.
Absolutely. Company's domain is vayu-prana.com, which is vayu-prana.com. And you can find me on my first name. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dhruv Adhia. Happy to connect with you all. Or you can email me dhruv, dhruv at vayu-prana.com. And yeah, and happy to connect from there on in different ways. But those are some of the details.
Love that. Dhruv Adhia, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today. We appreciate your time, and I'm sure the listeners will benefit from what you've shared.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom.
You're welcome. And to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble. I'll see you next time.